Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast. Hello to the 7 of you watching this therapy session that we're about to go through. Yes, we are back. It's a Monday main show after a very difficult day yesterday at Stamford Bridge. I'm here with my friend, my colleague, my love, George. Hello.
Hello, good sir. Hello. I feel like you had a better night last night than most people had a day.
I was at a stag do yesterday, so I didn't actually. I've now seen the highlights and the incidents, and obviously the stats and stuff. But George is going to have to hold my hand as always on the football side of things. So yeah, I kind of missed a lot of the I don't know what would it be, the response, the sort of the maybe the meltdowns here and there. Obviously, it wasn't on the instant reaction. So yeah, I've had some time sort of away. Yeah, this is going to be hopefully quite therapeutic. I'm like kind of dreading going into this and talking about Arsenal right now, but also I think probably in an hour or so I'll feel a lot better. So yes, we're here. And thank you for being here because yeah, it's a tough time. It's a really tough time for Arsenal right now. I feel really sad, to be honest. And I think there's a place to start there is for a number of reasons. We'll get into the game sort of more specifically, but I want to start with like the title race, where we are, how we're feeling about the team, and you know where we are as a club. I think when in any walk of life, when you don't feel like something's reaching its potential, when you don't feel like something is maximizing itself, it's sad. But especially when you know it's something you care about so much. I think my main feeling today, just to start the pod, is just a sadness and a kind of a resignation. I think we need these 2 weeks, to be honest, to reassess, to find some answers, to have a proper think about where we are as a club, where we want to go, to not, you know, lose ourselves in that, but also, you know, to not avoid that either, because, you know, I'm it's certainly the way I'm feeling. But yeah, just I was watching like the updates come through. We were having dinner, and that Pedro Neto goal went in, and you just get that wave of like, oh, not this, and 2 weeks of soul searching and all that stuff. So yeah, that's where I'm at today, George. How are you?
I'm okay. I think I even said on the instant reaction, I think part of the frustration is that if you were to take this game in isolation, it was a good game, actually, from Arsenal. Played very well, and definitely made more steps forwards in terms of regaining our form. And it's no shock to me that with an 11 that has essentially, for the most part, trained together for a year at least, that's what happens. It produces our most cohesive performance that we've had in maybe 5-6 games. It's an 11 that know each other. It's an 11 that know where to stand, where to move, where they need to be, and it looked like that. But part of the problem is when you have the context of that result with the last 5 games or so, it almost, you can't sit there and seriously say I'm not worried about the future of this season when that is hanging over your head. And so I have a really tough time trying to be objective about the game itself, because it was a good game, and we'll get into some of the specifics. I think we did very well, and we started to see some of the old Arsenal back in terms of how we were controlling the game and territory. But my frustration, I think, as a whole is, you know, and we'll probably get into it later sections, I feel that we're losing points from winning positions too much this season. I feel that at times, however you want to put it, but last year, our record against the top 6, I think people forget, like, the games were cagey, but our results were absolutely incredible. I don't know of another team in another season that had garnered that many points against top 6 sides, generally speaking. It was truly an incredible performance against top 6 sides. And what got us through certain games there, I look back last year, Man United at home, in which we did need Rice to pull out a winner in the 90th minute. We did need somebody to step up in big moments when the game was on a knife edge to help us get over the line. And I think we did that quite a bit last year. This year, when I get to a position where I feel like we're drawn at an even game state, I'm not confident we will find a winner. That comes from somewhere. And I just feel like we can talk about some tactics about how people get things wrong, but that feeling is something that I can't deny. And I think it's a little bit emblematic of losing trust in the team's ability to maximize their potential right now. And that's not a good feeling when you're talking title race, when you're talking season. And I think if I had to look at things broadly, if I was really being honest with you, I feel that title race is on life support right now. Personally, I feel, for all the context as to why, and we can talk about that, there's reasons why, some not in our control, some in our control. But when you look at this kind of a gap at this point, luckily there's a lot of football to be played, which is why I don't think it's out and why I say it's on life support. I truly don't think that it's done, but I really do believe that it actually relies on other results and other teams at this point in the season. And that's not something that I like doing, and I believe, just to end the title race, as far as that stuff goes, you need to be within 5 points by March. That for me has been categorically true of really any title race that I've seen in my years, at least. And I've seen people overcome 8 to 7 points in March. So I don't think that the gap necessarily is unachievable at this point in the season. But yeah, I do think that we have to get to March within 5 points of the title race to be in it, for me. And anything more, I think, is a very tall order to overcome.
Yeah, I think there's facts and there's feelings, and the fact is, I'm seeing some like bogus stats coming out and being like, oh, no one's recovered from the title race in this position. Yeah, because it's game week 11. Like we can pull that out. The fact is, in my opinion, if we, as you say, if we get to March, February, and we're 8-9 points behind, I'm sat here, the title's over. That's done. So factually, we're not out of it. But the feeling is what you were saying, is that I don't feel this team are getting the breaks that is needed to win a title. I don't feel this team has it's not even about the belief, because I think they do believe, but you need something to go for you. You need a little bit of luck. You need a player to have an unbelievable season, or you need a down period or whatever. Maybe we're starting to get that with Man City. I don't know. But it feels like we've had this thing with, Slot coming to the league and having this unbelievable start. The fixture list we've had, like everything, you need some things. You need luck. You need a little bit of luck. And that's the feeling I have, that we don't have that. So as much as I can sit here and say what I feel about the title race, which I agree with you factually, I don't think it is over. And until we're sat here in February, March, as I say, 8-9 points behind, it's not. Ultimately, Liverpool factually still have to play City twice, and City have to do the other. We factually will have easier fixtures going forward. There's a number of things in our favour. But as I sit here today, I'm not saying that with a face going like, so it's all fine. I'm sat here going, this is a team that I don't, even with those things in the case, I'm really starting to go, is this just one of those years? And then you come to the club and you come to what can we control? And as you say, sort of losing positions or whatever. And I wanted to save this till later, but maybe this is better now. I just don't know how simple we're keeping it. I think sometimes you can overcomplicate things, and it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think there are people who go, football's simple and it's this, and then you miss out all the nuance. But I hope on these types of podcasts and in these types of conversations, we try and take in the more complicated aspects of football and pair them with the more simplistic aspects and find a balance, right? And I just, as I said, I didn't watch that full 90, but I'm thinking about Arsenal over the last month, 2 months, say without Odegaard. Have we just kept it simple? Have we just gone, okay, we might get a drop-off, but let's put someone who's going to do some of what Odegaard does, or keep it simple and just pull Saka inside. He's our best player. He can do an amount of that, stick Sterling out there and make it work rather than tinkering around and moving it around. Have we kept it simple with the substitutions, with the way we've approached games, with the way we've done different aspects of ourselves in different games? I don't know. And then going further back, looking at the market, it's annoying to have to think about the market, but that's what is coming to mind, frankly, for me right now. Did we keep it simple in the summer? Did we? By just signing someone who we know in those sorts of games, when that ball goes wide to William Saliba and that ball comes into Leandro Trossard, someone you know is going to be on the end of that and may cause us some problems in our press elsewhere or cause us some problem in more complicated aspects of things. But someone you know, if we put the ball in the box at 85th minute, he's going to get his head on it and he's going to get a chance. And I just I don't know. I just sometimes think Mikel is so obviously so talented and such a brilliant manager. But sometimes is it about just keeping it simple? And I don't know if we've done that this season.
I think part of the problem is that we've almost, I have felt at least, that the approach hasn't matched the setup many times. So in this time that we've adapted without Odegaard, we've employed this system that is kind of this 4-2-4 type of system, right? And my frustration with that is the types of players that we fielded within that formation. We haven't struck the balance between the number of behind the ball players as well as ahead of the ball players. And we've asked our front two within that 4-2-4 to also come behind the ball in terms of helping us. So effectively, you leave yourself with what's 3 players max, because maybe one of the front two will stay high. And typically it was Trossard. It was a mix of ideas. It's not wrong to have your front two drop out of the pivot to help progression. It's not wrong as an idea. What is wrong to me is having your 5'8", 5'9" Trossard battling center backs and having your 6'4" center forward do that progression thing. And so again, that's a tactic. That's a setup that I don't think we've used well. And that's the part that's not simple, let's say. That's the part that, for me, we have overcomplicated. When you have somebody like Odegaard that is missing from the team, and when you have had a lot of people missing from the team, because it's not just Odegaard, right? Like, we've had some serious injuries. We've had some serious people that are out. I have a couple major principles when I look at football. I look at pods, I look at attacking departments and defensive departments, and I think there needs to be a balance. I think when you have a redundancy of action, it's when the football pitch becomes messy. And I think that you need to make sure that you have dynamism in terms of making sure the pitch is stretched wide. It's not good enough to just have your wingers wide. That's not, there's something called width, and then there's effective width. There's threatening width. So it's not just having people occupy lane. Like when we talk about lane 5 and we talk about all these stuff about tactics, it's not just about occupying the areas you're supposed to. It's about creating doubt in those areas. And so whilst I feel like we're always set up in a way that is well coached because of Mikel Arteta, we are well coached. My problem is I just don't see the fundamentals of the game that I support, in which I've seen from Arsenal, where there isn't effective width in the last, I'd say, over a month now at this point. And that comes from beyond just missing people. That, for me, is when we start to cave in. It's like when you start, that it's not going for you and you go into a rut and you stop doing your routine in life, where maybe you're not confident, maybe you've got rejected on a couple dates every now and then. And now, instead of being really light and bubbly in your first date, you're tense, and your date can feel that. And then it's like, it's a little bit of a weird situation in which now both people are uncomfortable, and the date fails, not because you didn't put yourself out there, not because you didn't put your best foot forward, but because you've put too much expectation on the moment. And that really feels like the case. Can you
stop describing my dating life, please, George? Yeah, that's
real. No, but just sometimes you need to let loose. Sometimes you just, maybe you don't do the normal coffee date and you just go rock climbing. Sometimes maybe you just get yourself out of the city. Sometimes you don't even go on a date and you just hang out with people, and there's just a really cool girl that you end up talking to, and that ends up being your date. But you didn't call it a date. And you ended up talking the entire night and you had no idea who she was before, but now you know everything about her. And you stayed up till 2 a.m. getting drunk hamburgers or whatever after a night out. And all you did was talk for hours. And you look back at your night and you're like, I wanted to go to the club and that's what I did. Wow, that was cool. That was amazing. And the reason I kind of, just to bring it back to football in a sense, is when I feel like you find something and you watch a product in which not only that you're proud of, but you feel confident in, and you start to recognize things that you've always done, that as a fan gives you confidence. Right now, I'm not seeing those things. And I'm seeing an approach that seems manufactured. I'm seeing an approach that people are doubting where they're supposed to stand and where they're supposed to be and where they're supposed to arrive in. And that is definitely something that I think is a consequence of us, not just in form, but I think in terms of the players not trusting the approach entirely. Not trusting Mikel, but the approach, I think right now is having some confusion. And we need to address the balance. We do need to address the balance.
Yeah, I see that. And, you know, to take the analogy, you know, if you have a great night, the method, how you got there, you don't start questioning it. But when the results aren't going your way, you start to question. That's the only time you question the method, isn't it? And ultimately, you know, I'm sat here saying, were we simple enough in the market? Should we just gone and got a flat track bully? You know, have we tried to move too many pieces around to replace Odegaard? You know, you're only asking those questions because of the result. If we got results, I'd be saying, what a masterclass from Mikel. So, and also on the simple side of things, if I'm saying, well, potentially the solution is simple, maybe the problem's simple. Maybe the problem is literally we've had some injuries, we've had some terrible fixtures, which we have, and we've had some bad luck, and that's happened as well. But as I say, I think the problem is, I think maybe what you're picking up on in terms of the players not quite trusting that approach. There just feels like something's not clicked in the belief or something. But it's weird because when I watched Martinelli celebrate yesterday, I see the passion from the players. I watched that interview with Declan Rice. I don't get the sense. I'm not in the camp. I don't know, but I don't get the sense that this is a team of players that's downing tools.
No.
So you're looking for answers, and maybe you're looking in places that you don't need to. Let's come to the game itself. As I say, I didn't see the full 90, so you'll need to comment more on sort of performances and stuff. Obviously, I've seen the incidents. Overall, you seemed pretty happy though, and I think certainly in that second half, we showed a lot more of ourselves again.
Definitely. I think the second half was a much better performance. I think it's not even that the first half was bad. It was just cagey.
I did see about 20 minutes of that, and it was pretty cagey.
Yeah. And I felt, I don't know. I was having a look at it though, and I felt for the most part, Chelsea and Arsenal shared periods of looking dangerous, but I still felt even throughout the full 90 and in the first half, I felt that Arsenal had the better chances to go ahead. You know, when you have a look at that Martinelli chance, it's really frustrating because this is just another example of one of those moments where individually he must do better. There's just no excuse for me in that moment to be through on goal that you're not at least testing the keeper to go low and hard, either side, right? And then you actually shift to his goal, ironically, and that's 22-23 Martinelli. And it's really weird. Yeah. And he is almost a case study for the season, to be honest with you. Like, there's flashes of what I've seen from last year about the team that's really sharp, but then we're just not quite there entirely. And you know, I think as far as the game really specifically, I think Thomas Partey ironically had a really tough game. Despite him being one of our most formed, if not our most formed player, he really struggled in this game. And what I was noticing is in the first half, we went through a period in which Cole Palmer barely touched the ball. I think for like 25 minutes, Cole Palmer had something like one touch in the first half. And part of the thing was Cole Palmer was finding space outside the cover shadow of Thomas Partey. So Thomas Partey would step up, but because Ben White was really wide in this match. He was tasked with holding width a lot more. Thomas Partey found himself dropping into the back line quite a bit in terms of being that third center back on the right. And Cole Palmer was just drifting into those half spaces. So instead of Thomas Partey being in midfield, he had to run from defense to midfield. And that inevitably meant he had to time his runs brilliantly because he was making up more ground in terms of having an anticipation if he wants to intercept it. But I don't think he struck that balance correct all the time. And there was a lot of times he was late. He wasn't doing a great job of controlling that battle. Then oppositely, Chelsea did a horrific job controlling the Saka battle. Cucurella and Levi Colwill were stressed all 90. They did not look comfortable. And I think, there were some moments in which I thought we had such brilliant ideas, but horrible execution where Cucurella could not handle Saka, but also he couldn't handle the blindside run. So there was times in which Saka would drift infield, Ben is on the overlap, and a simple ball floated over the top, just like we felt that would be successful against a Liverpool. That was on in this match against Chelsea, and the execution was just poor. But had we exploited that, that was a battle that we could have really created a little bit more issues with. And then, generally speaking, David Raya really helped to keep us in the game in these KG moments because there were some dangerous transitions and crosses, but he was very proactive with his cross claiming. So he really helped give us solidity there. But part of the problem is towards the second half, as we transitioned, I felt like from minute 70 and onward, Odegaard was the man. And ironically, in the first, I'd say 70 minutes, our press immediately looked better. And I said this on the instant reaction. We look better, but it's not because Martin Odegaard is doing something. Well, he is doing something, but it's not because his play is affecting the team huge. It's his communication and his trust. And, when he moves to create a trigger, our press looks far more coordinated. But in terms of his on the ball play, it was really unremarkable, if we're being fair. And that's expected from so long out. But then you get to the 70th minute and he starts clicking and we start clicking as a team. Mikel Merino comes in as a cameo who I think does brilliantly in those high areas, especially between the line as an 8. And he's a conundrum because people look at him as a 6'8", as this big framed dueler that has been ponderous. But he's ponderous in deep zones because that's not where he's best. That's not where he wants to be. He's better higher up the pitch. And we see that when he is higher up the pitch, he creates threat. And I just think as a whole, it was just such a missed opportunity, mate, because we're on top in those last 20 minutes. And we just need one of those chances to go our way. And we genuinely create some very dangerous situations that are quite varied. I think towards the end, people are going to say, Trossard is probably offside, but that comes from a really brilliant piece of play that Arsenal work. Mikel Merino, when he first comes on, how we work it with Bukayo Saka doing, again, another brilliant cross into a dangerous area. He's inches away from a touch that sends us into elation. And I don't know, I think I could name you 3 or 4 very big chances that we missed in the second half in terms of stuff that we manufactured brilliantly from open play. And the frustration is we conceded a goal that I think is so soft. It's really poor, mate. Like, it's a slip ball from Palmer into Neto, who has acres of space to shoot, but not just Thomas Partey, who, again, I mentioned was having a really difficult match, who was backing up. Declan Rice was also somebody that was in the back line for that moment. And if you go in and you watch the replay, both of them vacated the center and they dropped into the back line, and no one was stepping up. And it's not because they can't. That is prime Declan Rice ability right there. That, for me, is part of the redundancy. When you have a look at 2 players that want to do the same thing, but they almost freeze and they're like, okay, well, you're there, you do it. And they're both thinking that the other one is going to step up, and they don't. And so as a whole, you're left as a gut punch because, again, I actually felt we did very well. We played very well. I thought Timber had a really good second half as well. He's somebody that, displayed some of that running power that, I love to see. But the more as the match kind of wore on, Chelsea were very strong on the right-hand side. I thought Madueke had a very good night. as well. And I think Malo Gusto is probably one of the better 1v1 defenders, or not just defenders, but like fullbacks in the league, generally speaking. So he's a really top right back. But I don't think we exploited the Levi Colwill and the Cucurella matchup kind of frequently enough. There was times that I think Cucurella was just resorting to fouling Saka early in order to get a jump on him, which is what he was doing. But we didn't do a great enough job but working play through the right-hand side, despite having the right-hand side back, but it seemed injured. Again, Martin Odegaard looked tired, but came to life in the 70th minute. Ben still doesn't look right, personally. From a fitness perspective, I'm not seeing the same dynamic runs on the outside. He's doing his best, but there's not that same penetration. And so again, you're left wide. And I thought that our wingers were too wide. They weren't central enough. And towards the second half, it was just frustrating because we felt like, the tempo of our play was again very slow. It almost felt like while we created more chances in the second half, the players felt like there was another 90 minutes to play. When you start the game and you're just feeling yourself out and possession is about gaining confidence in your touch. You start recycling it back and forth. Everybody gets a touch. You touch, I touch. There was that, but then I was sitting there saying, mate, you've got 10 minutes left. Mate, you've got like 15 minutes. There's got to be some urgency in terms of the play. I don't need to see a big chance, but there's got to be some messaging on your passing that's authoritative. And everything was a little bit too, we're okay, we trust in our plan, which is fine if you commit to a plan. And that was something that frustrated throughout the match. I mean, I was watching it with my fiance and, she's not somebody that watches football at all. But the one thing she would be like is, why are they passing so slow? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. And we needed to work the ball quicker from side to side because I think this Chelsea team really struggle. They're good in their shape, but one thing that they don't do is they don't react to situations well enough, especially that back line. They're very slow to duels if you catch them on the wrong side. If you give them time to set up and to face players, they can manage. But I think when they're asked to go to areas that they're not used to, that's when they struggle the most. And yeah, it was a very frustrating match for me because there were some good performances, especially William Saliba, probably the man of the match for me. This is a guy who's been in really serious form the last couple games, and it's unfortunate that we can't talk about him because of the results haven't allowed it. But beyond that, I really don't think that Chelsea created a ton of dangerous situations. And mate, even their goal, for as much as I'm frustrated about how we concede, it's a 20-yard or an 18-yard shot. I don't think Chelsea had very many opportunities, bar the Malo Gusto header kind of at the end of the half, in which Neto again finds some space on the outside, delivers a really dangerously whipped cross. And, Malo Gusto has that flash header that goes over the bar right before half. Actually, I ironically think that was their best chance of the half. But it was a frustrating night, mate, because for all of the very interesting things, a brilliant Marino cameo, I think an Odegaard that lasted 90 minutes is incredible, by the way, just in terms of pure will. And the fact that he grew as the game went on is not something that you would talk about from a player who hasn't played in 6 weeks. So it's a testament to him. But then I'd say, I don't remember when the subs were, but by the 80th minute, we've had to be forced off with a Rice sub. We had to be forced off with a Saka sub again. And you're in the last 10, 15 minutes, and the guys that have won are asked to come on the pitch. Let's put it that way. In Jesus, and I'm not seeing the threat. When that happens, when you're forced off with a sub, I just don't trust it. And once he came on, I felt, okay, we're gonna have something to go our way, because I don't know where we're gonna find a goal. With both Trossard and Jesus here, things felt narrow in moments. But I can't deny that we definitely created some very good chances within that time period. So all in all, a very mixed feeling, because on the whole, there were some things that we did a lot better. Our press looked much better. much more coordinated. The spaces were a lot more well controlled. We dominated territory quite a bit more, and I started to see some different variation in our attack. Broadly speaking, there was definitely some more creativity flowing forward. Kai Havertz is very unlucky on that offside goal, but it's a brilliant piece of individual play despite being offside. Like the composure to slot that in, that finish is a proper finish. We didn't find him enough throughout the match. He was battling, but we didn't find him enough in those isolated situations. And so there's things that we could have improved on, but we really needed this win in a lot more ways, because we needed to, not to feel better about ourselves going into the international break, but we needed it to justify the baby steps of improvement that we've made. Because I assure you, players do this as well. It's part of what got Mikel the trust, right? You can, when you're doing bad form, you start to look at, okay, we're going to change things and I need to see it work. So we were changing things and it was working, but ultimately the result, I think, left us wanting more and deserving a little bit more, I think. So yeah, I'm left frustrated. I mean, a point away at Stamford Bridge is not something that you're going to get annoyed at, especially because I don't think that we have lost against Chelsea not at Stamford Bridge, but just at Chelsea. I don't think we've lost in the league since 2018. And so it's a team that we do enjoy to play against. I just felt if you're looking for a title-winning team, when we turn that screw, I need us to become dangerous. I want the opposition to feel stressed, and I just don't know. I mean, you're stressed watching it because you're a fan, but it didn't strike me as a team that was searching for a winner in the last 10 minutes, and that frustrated me.
Coming to some numbers, Chelsea 1, Arsenal 1, obviously. 1.1 expected goals to 1.2 for us, according to Scott Willis. 3 shots on target each, 10 open play shots each, 51% possession to their 49. We had 17 more passes than them, 56.1 field tilt, similar number of final third entries. It's a really, really similar 9 zone 14 touches to 10 for them. 13 crosses for us, 10 for them. It's very, very similar in terms of the numbers and the running XG, and the shot locations even are pretty similar. And obviously we had the sort of the period in the second half with the field tilt, which was where we were kind of coming into the game. I think the one thing I want to pick out from what you were saying there was around the tempo. The tempo is a kind of perennial issue, and I felt this for a while. And the thing is when we're controlling games, when we feel as though we're creating enough chances or whatever, we don't talk about the tempo. But I never feel that this Arsenal team under Arteta play with a great deal of verve, specifically on transitions and on the counter. I never feel we're sort of popping in and out of midfield and running off each other particularly very often. I never feel we go very direct on the ground. We obviously go direct to Kai Havertz. And it is, Mikel's football is obviously a lot about, you need to stand here to do this, and if you're receiving here, then pass to that foot and all that sort of stuff. There's obviously a lot of instruction, and I think you can kind of see it in the way, even just on the highlights that I saw, but also in obviously previous games and just over his time. You can see the players thinking, you can see the players formulating, you can see the players with the manager on the PlayStation in his head, with them in mind. And it's really frustrating, and I feel like we've spoken about this before, and I said this in a different knock video actually this week, around we've known this manager for a while now. We've known him for a while, and so we know his flaws, we know his problems. In the same way that, to continue the partner analogy of this podcast, if you have a long-term partner for 5-6 years, then you begin to get frustrated by their flaws, or whatever it might be, the things that didn't frustrate you at first, and you get very familiar. Everyone's going to have flaws, and I think this is kind of Mikel's is the over control, which has got us to where we are. So to some degree, it's good, but on days like today, it does feel incredibly frustrating. Again, sorry to look back to the market, but you just feel like a different tempo, a different way of playing is needed. And I don't think it's just Odegaard. I think this is a wider problem. I think this is a Mikel thing where he doesn't like his teams to be in that transitional, out of control, where the game's becoming a basketball. And I get it, but there are games and days, I think we've seen in this period, where we need that. We do need that. And I don't know how you solve that, because I don't think it's necessarily solved by this group of players. I don't think it is. I think it is solved in the market. And it's frustrating. Also want to come on to Odegaard and just give him his praise. I've seen a couple of comps going around as well, just of all his touches and stuff. And to play like that, having been out since September, yeah, is incredible. Is absolutely incredible. And to be the kind of technical leader, and in this type of football, in this controlled, small spaces, come around the box, try and find an angle, it absolutely suits Martin Odegaard. But it's kind of saying something if Odegaard makes us jump like that. It's like it tells you that he is the key to it, which is fine. But do we have other keys, other players who can unlock different ways of playing for us? I'd say Saka's one, but I don't know if we have another in that same way who when they come out of the team, you see our world fall apart. And you saw it in Mikel. He was talking to Paul Merson, I think, on Sky before the game. And he was saying, Odegaard just gives us another level. And I'm like, that's fine. But that's one way. And I don't think we have another way. I think we've seen in this last couple of weeks that we haven't had another level. So yeah, it's really frustrating. Sort of closing up on the game then, in terms of the incidents, the Trossard miss is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The Neto moment, I think, is sort of what you were alluding to earlier about Thomas Partey in that dropping into that centre back role, which I think is a mistake. And I think we could tell that was a mistake. We gave him too much space. I think the Havertz one is offside, so I don't really have much to say on that one. Yeah, incidents wise, anything you want to sort of finish up on?
No. Like, I think it was, again, I thought we played well. I do, and I thought that we did some really good things, and it was just really frustrating that I felt like Thomas Partey has probably one of his most difficult matches for me in like the last 6 weeks. And I hate doing this because I feel like, why do I criticize a player that's been objectively our best player the last month, but he had a tough night, have to see what I see. And I thought Mikel Merino, I don't know if you did want to do it. I thought that cameo deserves some discussion. He's been getting some pelters online. You know how you're talking about, did we do enough in the market? I maintain I was really upset with our summer window. I was really upset with the Sterling solution. This idea, I was trying to find a reason in terms of saying, okay, if we get a more fit Saka, he could be our marquee. He could be our transitional inevitability, which I still believe is a theory. It's definitely fine. But part of the problem is I just don't think that we did enough in the market. That's true. But then people were blaming Mikel Merino for that and the players that we've seen. So, for example, Calafiori has given us a big moment. He has given us, which, by the way, people forget, he's been able to train. So he gave us that City moment. So then you don't question that signing, right? I think, I don't know why Raheem Sterling has gotten away with as much as he's gotten away with. I think maybe because people felt like he wasn't very good to begin with. So their logic is bad signing performs bad. So, fine. But then you've got a European winner that Mikel has made a choice of. I don't think he was a universally accepted as a signing either, Mikel Merino. I don't think that people loved that signing. And then he gets injured, right? And so he's robbed of a preseason. And now I'm just seeing things that he's just not good enough. And I'm seeing things that, to describe a player that he never was. Like, people want him to do things to fix our tempo, right? And that's not the type of player he is. But then I see that cameo and I just think that was a very, very good cameo. He did very well. And people, again, I don't know if they've profiled him correctly. He is a pockets player. For as big as he is and as many duels as he does engage in, because he does engage in a lot, that's a player that really does well in the pockets. Makes the right decisions in the pockets. And we need a lot more of that. And this match, he did a lot more about playing in those areas. And I think we saw a better Mikel Merino. And so I remember a couple pods ago telling you that we're going to have a tough decision to make because of Thomas Partey's form and an uncomfortable conversation to make. we may need to sit somebody that's doing well at the expense of balance. We need to be brave enough to make that decision, right? Like, it's not that you're a bad player. It's not that you've been playing bad, but for the balance of the team and making sure that more players are in areas that they prefer, we may need to ask somebody who's playing well to sit down. I mean, what's your favorite midfield three? Everybody had this going into the season. It would be Declan Rice, Mikel Merino, and Martin Odegaard. But factually, Thomas Partey's been our best midfielder all season. That was not on the bingo cards. And when you're in a fit 11 and you've got Calafiori in the back, by the way, who's just a new signing, I feel we're incredibly reliant on Calafiori. Not because we're reliant in a sense of he's a great player for sure, but we lack effective width on the left. And so we really need somebody down that side that gives us that thrust. And so despite being a new signing, he's almost vital to providing some balance. And it's no surprise to me, by the way, that the most zone 14 touches occurred against Leicester. What happened there, mate? Like, I mean, Martinelli and Calafiori, it's one of the few times this season in the Premier League that those two have played together. And it results in the team having the most zone 14 touches that we've had. Obviously, they're an easy opponent, but that if anybody remembers that game, it was anything but easy. Leicester played well. And I think it was beyond the quality of the opponent. It was about balance on both sides. We had a right-hand side and a left-hand side that both had effective width. We had enough runners and passers in the back line, as well as being able to say that we didn't have a flat midfield of Mikel Merino, Thomas Partey, Declan Rice, Yuri Timber at left back, Gabriel Saliba, Ben White. Mate, that is a lot of players behind the ball. So when I have a look at it, Mikel Merino definitely was somebody that I think grew, stock rising, you could say, in terms of an incident. I think David Raya went back to really confident display. I don't know if I've seen a lot of that on the timeline. Again, it doesn't matter because a lot of people are saying, so what, we didn't get the result. But I thought he was brilliant, very proactive with his crossing and took away a lot of pressure from us. And yeah, William Saliba, I thought, had a really good match as well. And I just wonder, I mentioned to you this on the pod last time, when you've got somebody like William Saliba as a quality, right, and somebody that's able to lead your build-up in that way, do we need the amount of conservatism that Mikel asks in terms of having Declan Rice, Thomas Partey, which is fine as a pivot, but you've also now got Yuri and Timber into the mix? That's now 3 defensive players in the middle third because they don't operate in the defensive line. They come into midfield, right? All 3 of them. And Martin Odegaard's back, so that's another player that's going to drop into the middle third. And not only that, you're going to ask your forwards to do the same. It seems odd to me to do that. We're putting a lot of people in the middle third, but not allowing enough people to stay high in the final third. And so your targets are small. So yes, the tempo's bad because we have so many people back that the targets are very few and far between. So when we talk about tempo, we're makers of our own issues here. When we put so many people behind the ball in the middle third, we're saying, okay, maybe we don't trust the progression, but mate, if you don't leave enough players ahead of the pitch to hit, you leave yourself with very easily marked kind of forwards. So you worsen the problem by your own making in that sense. And if you don't have enough dynamic switches and enough dynamic running on both sides on the outside, have enough effective width, if you just have people occupying the wide spaces but not creating doubt, then the back line can keep narrow, it can collapse, and it trusts that when you go out to those spaces, all you're going to do is recycle. And unfortunately, that's a bit of what has plagued us, not just in this match, but in the last 5 games on the tempo point. I think teams have been very relaxed and able to stay compact. We haven't done enough to move defenders. And I will end on, I do think that goes back to the market. When you struggle with those stuff, it's not that we struggle for speed. We struggle with somebody moving center backs in the box effectively enough. And I still think we lack it.
I think on the Merino thing, for me, like I think it comes back to keeping it simple. Maybe is my main feeling at the minute. And if putting Thomas Partey in the team means Declan Rice is out of position at some point, especially when he's having, when he's in brilliant form, you're like, oh, okay, maybe. But if he's even having one bad game, it's not worth it. Do you know what I mean? It really isn't. If he's our £100 million supposedly, base of the team, I don't like it. I really don't. And for me, it does go back to that. It's keeping it simple. I hear what you're saying about the presence in the box and how we're using the wide areas and stuff, but putting players in the best positions, it feels like something we haven't particularly done this season. Playing Thomas Partey at right back when we could have played a right back at right back, in various zones. I don't, it's easy after the fact to say it didn't work, or, why don't we just keep it simple when you lose? If we'd won, I wouldn't be talking about this, but we didn't. And yeah, it just feels like that's something that's just not working for us at the minute. Let's come to some questions. This is from Ash11 on the Discord, who says, Jesus, Sterling and Leo, we're getting nothing out of half of our attackers. Will that ultimately cost us in terms of the league? I think something has to change there, certainly. And I don't know whether that's... I think certainly some of it is just usage and giving players more time. I think certainly some of that is form. I think certainly some of that is confidence. I think obviously the fixtures and there's so much context and the 11 men issues we've had this season, etc. But there's also an individual responsibility on all three of those players. And yeah, I can't hide it. I've been disappointed with all three at some point. And I'm looking to January. And the thing is, I don't just want to use the market as like an easy out from discussing actual problems in the team. I
think that's a problem. Like when you use the market as a reason to fix your season, something's gone wrong.
Well, yeah, but I think it has. And I think when three players are not contributing in the way that we need them to, I think we have to go to the market. But yeah, that, as you say, it's that's something's gone wrong, and especially with players who are pros, senior pros. They're being, that Ethan Wanner is coming on. So, Saka and Martinelli, yes, they've still been around, but they're still under 24 players. These are, Jesus is a serial Premier League winner. Sterling as well. Leo's been around for so many years, senior Belgian international. These are players who should be in these moments stepping up and performing, and they're not. I can't look at that Trossard chance yesterday. Like, Mikel must be furious. He must be like what do we pay you for? You can miss chances, but like in that moment, last kick of the game, it's so frustrating. And I have to say, I'm looking at the market.
And it's just frustrating because, again, I think even if he scored, it would have been offside. But part of the problem is we're not doing that enough. And, I'll be honest, I have more sympathy to Trossard than I do out of the other two, because of what he's done, because of his run-in. And I really think that he's been a player that's in probably the worst form of the three in the last month, but has given more to the team in the last 6. And so I'm sat there annoyed, but I feel like I'm sat there annoyed at Mikel for not taking him out, right? And not being able to effectively bring some form. Mate, Sterling is an uncomfortable conversation. Truly. It's now going to be the end of November. When the next time that we could see him play. Not that I even think we will see him play. To not have a single moment, we're not talking goals or output. Like, we're talking a moment of sitting there saying, yeah, you're going to help us this season, is not something that was on anyone's bingo card. And, when we talk about having the best Band-Aid possible in the market, and you're talking about going to the market, I think a big reason is, and I would probably ask you, a lot of people would cite last year with Emile Smith-Rowe and Reece Nelson as sales we needed to do in going through it. My frustration is we have gone to trusting winners, which is a theory that I think is logical, right? Like, we've got rid of Emile Smith-Rowe and we got rid of Fabio Vieira. We got rid of Reece Nelson. And we've replaced them effectively with Ethan Wanner and Jesus, or sorry, not Jesus, Sterling, in terms of the front line. Mm-hmm. And it's not, I can't sit here and honestly tell you that I was a fan of all of those sales. And it came predicated under some very basic assumptions. Are you going to trust your replacement? So was Ethan Nwaneri going to get trusted fully? I really had my doubts. For as much and as brilliant as he's played, and he's played a lot of really good minutes, like I don't want to doubt, by the way, Ethan Nwaneri with maybe another 20 minutes outplays the amount of minutes Saka played at 18. So the integration, it is objectively very good, but he wasn't trusted as much as he should have been. And so that was definitely the case. He certainly wasn't trusted to be the replacement of ESR and Fabio Vieira, which squad planning wise, he had to be if you got rid of both of those players.
Yeah.
Then you look at Reece Nelson and you look, and I'll ask you, a lot of people will say, well, Reece barely played last season. I go, I guarantee you the minutes that Reece did play were far better than whatever I've seen from Sterling. Far better. And I could do with a Reece Nelson right now.
Yep.
With Trossard out of form. So it's frustrating. It is like those three players. I've singled them out before. I've been on pods like in the last couple of weeks saying like Trossard, Jesus, Sterling, it's unacceptable. The experience has let us down. And on paper, mate, they've got everything. Like you can't sit there and have an honest conversation and tell me that these are bad players. They're not. Objectively, they're experienced pros that have had some serious input on the game. They're experienced pros, but they're just not earning their wage. And Jesus as well is another one of those that I've said, and I feel like you agree, we both have said could potentially be the biggest waste of the wage bill at Arsenal.
Yeah,
it's frustrating.
I think on like the Smith Rowe thing, because obviously he's performing well for Fulham. I understand the frustration, I do, but Smith Rowe would always have been a plan B. The problem is we signed a different plan B and haven't used it. So I'm not annoyed at the sale. I'm annoyed that we've signed a different way of doing what Smith Rowe would have done for us this season and then not used it. That's what I'm. So, and then, of course, you then go, oh, if only we'd had Smith Rowe, whatever. Like, but it's not that. It's a different way of formulating it. I think there's a lot of wastage. I feel there's a lot of wastage in terms of minutes. There's a lot of wastage in terms of squad role. You're absolutely bang on what you said about Nwaneri. Like, if you're going to move on Smith Rowe and Vieira, that's fine. That is genuinely fine. But then you have to either get someone else in who you think can in some way cover for Odegaard properly, or trust that and go with it. And we haven't. And maybe he wish it hadn't come so early in the season, but that's what you have to plan for. You have to plan for the worst case possible scenario. We have to plan for what happens if Bukayo Saka does his ACL tomorrow. We have to have a plan for that. We literally have to. And what do we do? And right now, I don't know if we have a clear answer. And that's really, look, you're always going to have, and people always say, where's the backup for Saka, whatever. There's never going to be a perfect answer. But it feels like even the non-perfect answers that we do have aren't being used, aren't being utilized, aren't being explored. So, yeah, I don't know. And I always try and give Mikel the kind of the benefit of the doubt and the kind of the respect to say, you'll have a reason, so let me have a think about why. He will have thought about this. He will. So what is it? And at the moment, I can't. There's a lot of things he's doing that I don't understand. The persistence with Trossard, in sort of obviously not he didn't start against Chelsea, but in previous games, the usage of Partey and where Rice is for so long now. The market, all these things, you can make up answers. You can, when areas usage, whatever, you can give answers. The tempo, but I don't have a particularly good answer, and then it gets me really frustrated because I don't know, because he must see it, and I just don't get it.
I do think that part of the problem is, we've talked a lot about some of the flaws that Mikel's done this season, right? And I have a look at it, and as a whole, when you say, let's go to the market to fix something, it's because you failed to prepare in the best way possible. And I do think we can't divorce this conversation for what's just happened with Edu. I think there was a major power struggle that happened this summer. And I remember sitting there at the end of the summer when we were debating how the window went. And I was really pessimistic on the window. And, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I want to see why they did what they did. I do think that's an answer that's maybe staring us in the face that we don't want to touch. I think Edu leaving is It's not that we don't want to touch it, like we're touching on it, and we've done a whole stream about it. But it's more of a case of, I think there was a major power struggle there, and this idea that he did have. There were some reports as early as September of Edu and Nottingham Forest having talks. That happened
I'm
much
sure
before.
it's been in the works.
Yeah, it's been in the works, and I think that struggle for power has definitely had an imprint on this season. And I remember saying this summer window, there's context, but mate, I refuse to believe that Arsenal, this under Mikel, have always been somebody that are well prepared, that explore the market and create value. Has always been something that we did, right? I looked at this summer window and I just felt, wow, there's a lot of stuff that's happened late. And I think there's a lot of this is because stuff comes out when, the team isn't doing well. But this idea that Calafiori wouldn't have been brought in unless we absolutely made a sale. And the only reason that pushed us to really do it is once Real Madrid came into the focus. I struggle with the intent of the preparedness for what's already became a very key starter. And it's not on him, but it's the intent. And I just felt like we approached this window behind, underprepared. It's fine. You can do that in the season. But then things didn't go our way. I think we lost players and we feel underprepared. We feel as though, if I could summarize this season, it's not just those three. We feel that we're waiting for Arsenal to come, to have that liftoff moment. We haven't seen the team and it frustrates us. Is that because there's a red card conspiracy? Is that because we haven't had a lot of people fit? Yes. Is that because, we haven't maximized Jesus, Trossard, Sterling? Is that because some of the decisions of the window haven't done it? Like, I can give you 4 or 5. Take your pick about how strongly you feel it happens. But as a whole, I don't feel prepared for the season. I don't feel that this team looks like a team that I recognize or that I would have expected to start the season. And I have to sit there and say, okay, we've got to reevaluate, reflect, and try to move forward, right? And so we try to look at January as an opportunity to do that. But we're losing a big pillar in Edu, regardless of what you feel about how important and his involvement was in deals or in what made us successful. I think that's still a major pillar in the team. It was a major executive head. He left for a good reason. There was none of that bitterness, but I do feel, looking back on what for me felt like an uncharacteristic window, and a pillar leaves, I think there has to be some knock-on effect. And only time will tell whether or not that was a good decision to make in terms of what Edu did, which I think we will be fine, by the way. I'm confident we will be fine. But I do think it didn't give us the best situation to enter the season, having that over the head. Yeah.
I'm always cautious about like reports and, whether Madrid came in at what time. I don't know. I want to work with stuff we do know. What we do know is he's left, and we do know that there was, I'm pretty sure I know that there was a desire to be CEO. So I'm pretty sure we can, with clarity, say that there was a power struggle, and that can't have helped, with our preparedness. And it's really frustrating. I just, unfortunately, I am sat here and I want to look at all these, I want to say, can we get more access in central areas? Can we move the ball quicker? Can we move this, that, and the other? But these things we've been talking about for a long time, and these feel like Mikel staples, and I'm kind of willing to put up with it to some degree for a certain period of time. But to me, the market is growing ever bigger in my thinking and what we do in January. On that, to sort of close the show, because this has been quite a down pod, and it's understandable, and obviously we're going to hopefully have a little bit more over the next few weeks of kind of, okay, how do we get back to it? So let's start that conversation. How do we return to what we know Arsenal can be? How do we stay in this title race? And I am fully of the opinion, and I don't care who thinks this is delusional, I'm fully of the opinion we can still win the league. Absolutely. I actually don't think it's debatable. If you're 9 points away in March, as we said earlier, let's have that conversation. But right now, you are basically, if you're saying Arsenal are out, you're saying City and Liverpool will not drop points for the next 27 game weeks, and they play each other twice. So factually, it's wrong. There you go. So there's something there at least. And we've given ourselves a massively smaller amount of margin of error, but we've seen this team go on long runs and winning runs before. So I know we can do it. But how do we do it now? I think the market, I think the usage of Jesus, Leao and Trossard, Leao and Sterling, as we've spoken. Leo. Freudian slip.
Literally.
Yeah, Leo and Sterling. I think the earlier changes, this is all stuff we've spoken about before. But I think also, like, it's really annoying to have to say this stuff, but we have to look Spurs away, Villa away, City away, Liverpool at home, Chelsea away in our first 11 games. That is with what was going on with our injuries, what was going on with Will suspensions. That is incredibly hard. That is incredibly hard for any team. And we are, I think, 5 points off City. We're not out. We have a lot of problems. We're sinking, but we're not out. And I think I said this earlier. These 2 weeks maybe have come at the perfect time. Obviously, you want to go and respond. You want to sort of put this behind us. But maybe in the sort of the course of the season, if we go out and we spank Nottingham Forest, as we should do, we'll feel a lot better about this. We will. It's just right now we've got these 2 weeks to stew on, and it's not a nice feeling.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. You know what? I had actually a big question for you. So you know how you were saying like the market's become really important for you?
It's growing in size, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what do we have to do? So it's growing in importance, right? And we're kind of approaching the point where, you know, January is not too far away. By the end of this international break, you're looking at the end of November. You're having a month left of fixtures in. So if we're saying that the market's becoming really important, like what are the expectations that you may, and it's kind of why I brought up Edu even before, like how does that impact what you can do in January? If it's becoming really important, it's important to have a sporting director in place. Now, we have had James King that's been brought back, you know, Richard Gard, like even though he's a CEO, has absolutely had a lot of experience back there. So it's not that we lack people that don't know what they're doing. We definitely have people that can lead negotiations. I guess my thing is like, what do you think we must do in the next month from a market perspective? Because I think on the pitch, we've talked about balance. I will say for me, what we have to return to is a level of defensive solidity. I'm going to name you 3 goals that I don't agree are Arsenal to concede, and that's Alexander Isak against Newcastle. Horrible goal to concede. Don't think that was brilliant play. It's not recognizable from this Arsenal side. The Pedro Neto goals are actually really poor. I don't recognize that goal. And you remember the Van Dijk header on the corner? Mm-hmm. Too easy. Like it is not something that I would say is characteristic of Arsenal. So we've got to fix those things. We've got to be Arsenal again in that sense. We've got to dominate our second balls. We've got to go back to being the best out of possession team in the world. And that comes from compactness, from getting people back fit, from judging our distances better. I think we need to increase the effective width that we have. Don't just put people in lane 5. Like we've got to move away from that. We've got to have dynamic running on both sides of the pitch. And we've got to do a little bit better, in my opinion, in terms of committing more people forward. We've got to strike the balance better between behind the ball players and ahead of the ball players. Those are things on the pitch I'm looking to Mikel to do and balance. But I guess in terms of the market, which is growing ever in importance because we're recognizing that at least in attack, we're missing something that we don't have. What does that look like to you? And what's reasonable to expect?
Well, I think with no Edu and with no kind of maybe longer term picture, there might be something there that benefits us where maybe James King and Richard Garlick and Mikel get in a room kind of without Dad and they say, and Mikel goes, look, I want some more running power in this team. And they go, okay, well, there's 60 million for the Benjamin Šeško release clause. Like, I want us, you know, we can talk names at another point, but profile, I do look at someone like a Šeško. I look at someone, you know, not the, maybe like a Omarodian, that guy at Porto you speak about quite a lot. Mm-hmm. The brute, the player that's going to come in and fire us up. And I think that has to come in the forward lines. I really do. I look at John Duran, right? And while I don't necessarily, I need to watch him more to sort of see his whole game. What I see is a player who, like, will not accept losing, will not accept second place. And we need a bit of that. With Mikel Merino, there was this moment where, and I think Mikel Merino is a brilliant player, by the way, and this is the temperament that you need in a team at some point. You need some of these players, right? When he missed that chance, it was a ball in from Saka, I think the one you were talking about earlier, it like just goes past his foot, and he just sort of does like he's gone like the caption would be drat, and you're like, damn. I want a guy who thinks about that chance for the next 6 months, and has that mentality in our forward line. We have someone that is a battering ram, a bruiser, and that could be physically, that could be sort of in the way they hit the ball or whatever. But just Cole Palmer picks up the ball in midfield and just has a shot and bruises the what's it called, the Raya's hands. But it changes the energy. It brings something to the team. It lifts the crowd. It gives you something. And we're so controlled and measured and meticulous and mathematical. I just want that player that's like, that maybe this is the right time to not have a sporting director, because a sporting director is going, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. Let's wait for the summer. We'll get him a better contract. No, take that risk. I think we're at that point where we've been very serious about our squad building for a long time, and there might be a little bit of scope to go, do you know what? This isn't the best financial decision, but if it's going to get us over a line, it might just be worth it, because what's it all for in the end? It's getting over the line, and I want to do that so bad.
Did you see Victor Osimhen's goals against Spurs?
Please don't. And what's annoying is, we said this, it's from the exact location that Saka puts those balls in. Exact location. And he gets the separation and scores. I don't know. I said I can name you 5 specific plays that I feel like he addresses. But what does he give you? Because again, it's not just about him. And again, I've talked about Omar-Rojan. And again, we'll do names at another time. But what does the forward look like? Describe him, because then when you find him, it's easy to see, right? I just said it's okay. If you want more specificity, I want the brute, but I want someone with more physical gifts than we have. We can't stretch the last line well enough.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing that I look at, and I got clowned for it on social media quite a bit, is I need to be more threatening in transition. Because it's not just speed. This gets confused quite a bit. I think people think, oh, let's just get a fast player. I don't think it's just speed. I need to see a level of gravity in the channels. I need somebody to move center backs by their presence, by their movement. I need somebody to dominate the 6-yard box. I don't care about other things. I mean, right now, those are things for me that are very, very important. And somebody that's got consistency to dominate the channels when they are outnumbered. I need a bully, as you describe it in that sense, but I need it very specifically in that game state. And that's why I mentioned the Osimhens, the Omar-Rojans. They're all bullies in their own right that are able to do that. And for as much as I think Sesko is a brilliant signing, it'll never be a bad signing, I still maintain he's probably the best center forward prospect in the world for me. Still. I've controversially said I prefer Omar-Rojan over Sesko. And why? I mean, we'll definitely do a scouted to talk about the type of player he is, but it has everything to do with how he imposes himself in the channels. And that's what the team needs right now. We need somebody that we can rely on, that can be a reference. And for example, I think Sesko's got brilliant physical qualities, but I know we've done some work on him before, and we've looked at him. He's raw. He's a prospect, and he is somebody that's not going to consistently provide you with those moments in the channels right now. But I think we need it. I do think it's on the scope of what you said, though, of a £60 million buy. I look at that as a budget for January and think, that seems reasonable to expect. It doesn't have to be on one player, but I think that budget seems reasonable.
Put it this way. I think budget-wise, look, I just want, whatever it takes, but put it this way. Next summer, we're not going to sign Raheem Sterling on a permanent. No one's convincing me that. And Reece Nelson, if we're allowing him to go out on loan, that tells us something about his future as well. Yep. So that tells me we have Saka, Martinelli, Trossard, who I don't know if we'll give a new deal to. We have Jesus, who there's a question mark over. And we have Havertz, who we started in midfield. So in terms of actual forwards, you can't tell me there's not thinking about moving for a forward. If that's going to happen next summer, I want that happening in January. I do. Like, okay, yeah, it'll cost more. Yeah, okay, there'll be more, the wages, whatever. But there is something about that it's not just for fans to go, oh yeah, great. We feel we need new impetus, new energy. And I think this is why people are sort of pointing to, oh, we're getting stale. Maybe it's Mikel. I don't think it's Mikel. Mikel's evolved the team over and over and over again. Yes, in subtle ways. What we need is new energy, new faces, a new direction. And I hope we can find that.
Yeah, I'm confident that we can. I think, to maybe end on a little bit more of a positive note, just in general, we have been better. I think we've taken some baby steps forward. A part of the problem is I do think that we need to support. I remember there was a section on the IR that I just sat there and saying it's not fun doing these. Like, it is. I'm not having fun watching the team right now because, again, they're just not. They're just not showing the potential that we know that they can be. But I think they deserve support right now. And there's a level of return to some basic fundamentals, earn the right to play, go back to our principles of play, trust in those, because that trust is what's got us to be title challengers, right? Like, it's not as though that these ideas are bad and we're dealing with bad players and a bad manager and a team that is bad. All those things are not true. We're performing bad. We're not performing to our fundamentals. It's bad that we're not doing those things, but this is still a good team. And I think the fans need to be reminded that just as much as the team does. Yep. Not just the fans, but the team needs to. And it's why I just really hope that they really take the time to regroup. And, you talk about spanking Nottingham Forest, mate. I think bigger than January, having a 5-0 against a Premier League team is probably the biggest medicine I could say that's needed.
For everyone, for the players, for the fans, for everyone. Yeah. It's so important. It's so important. Look, we are down. As George said, this isn't fun. Like, doing these kind of post-mortems, there's a kind of therapeutic aspect to it where you kind of pull out the path ahead. But I think we all need these 2 weeks. I think it might be important for everyone to have these 2 weeks to just like go, okay, where are we? Get clear-eyed on what the problems are, get clear-eyed on what the solutions are, and then move forward. And as you said, support the team because they do need to be reminded that they are a brilliant set of players. And the final thing I'll say is this before we finish. I think sometimes what happens is we get hyper-focused on our own team. And because you know exactly it's the Instagram effect. You know your flaws, and then you're looking at everyone else's perfections. You're only really going to notice when, so-and-so scored a great goal, or Smith Rowe's, scored this banger. You don't watch him the moment he loses possession and doesn't run back. Oh my God, Osman's had this moment. And we talk about it, whatever. We are so intimately acquainted with our own flaws that we forget that other teams have flaws too. Arne Slot has a massive job to keep this up, and maybe he will. And in which case we'll sit here in March, April, and we'll say, fair enough, and we'll have a different conversation. But this isn't over. This is not over. We just need a little bit of time to reflect. The pod is over, though. George, thank you.
Thank you, good sir.
And thank you for watching. If you got to the end, we hope you enjoyed the therapy session. Thanks for being here. We've got a great interview coming out this week with a very special guest, which we're looking forward to. No instant reaction this week, so we'll get some other form of content over to you guys. Main pod back from next week, where we'll have Rohan joining permanently. We've had a sort of a period where we've been able to make it work, but we're going to start as a 3. So yeah, hopefully onwards and upwards for both the Cannon podcast and, more importantly, Arsenal. Thank you for watching. Thanks for keeping it Arsenal.